Wednesday, September 22nd, Planning Commission to order. May I have a roll call, please?
When I call your name, please state here or present for the record. Amanda Jackson Denmark.
Here.
Kathleen Duncan.
Here.
Charlie Wetmore.
Here.
Matthew Yost.
Here.
Rich Delcourt.
Here.
Jason Stewart. Ron Williams.
Here.
Thank you.
Notice regarding adjournment. The Planning Commission will not hear new items after 9:30 unless authorized by majority vote of the commission members present. Items which have not been heard before 9:30 may be continued to the next regular meeting or additional meeting date as determined by the commission members. Notice regarding public comments. Every member of the public who is recognized to speak shall address the chairman and, in speaking, avoid disrespect to the board, town staff, or other members of the meeting. Please state your name, address when speaking for the record. Comments are listed to 3 minutes. Are there any public comments that are not on the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion for the adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
All right, second?
Second. Second.
Matt, okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. May I have an adoption of the minutes from August the 25th?
So moved.
Modification to them.
Okay.
Item number 2, St. Andrews. Kathleen actually recused herself, didn't you?
I did.
And it shows that she voted, so she needs to be shown as recused.
That's the motion. And may I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? No. Okay. Now we are into the public comments for items on the agenda. Darby, do we have any of those?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Do we have any old business? New business. Four Seasons street naming application. A request by John Paul Moore of Thomas and Hutton on behalf of the owner, Jack McSweeney of K. Hovnanian Homes, for approval of street naming application. The applicant has proposed 64 street names that include Jasmine Way, Bee Balm, Idlewood, Balsam Terrace, and Misty Moss. The project is located within the Four Seasons at Carolina Oaks, identified by the tax map number in your packet. Will.
Okay, thank you. You've covered some of my introduction, so I don't need to go through that for the request. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with the development known as Carolina Oaks. Many of you actually approved the preliminary plan for the first phase of that development. As they are proceeding, they are going to need more street names, and we are here tonight for you to review and approve requested names that can be used for future phases of that development. The application, total application listed, I think, 64 names. There were several that were declined, if you will, from various agencies. We send every street name. It goes to Beaufort County 911. It goes to City of Beaufort, Port Royal. It goes to Town of Hilton Head and Bluffton, and they're all reviewed to make sure there's no duplication anywhere within the county. So these are all of the names that remain, that are requested for approval of the original 64. I can read them all individually if you would like.
We can look at them.
Oh,
Thank
come
you.
on, make him do it.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Who comes up with all these?
Well,
Everybody just put names in a hat?
you know, it's getting more and more challenging to get street names because they are reviewed against everywhere in Beaufort County. I know the first round of street names for Four Seasons, the applicant submitted, you know, they needed 4 names. I think they submitted 6 and they only got 2 approved. And they had to come back to Planning Commission, if you remember that. So this time They submitted probably more than they will use, but it's good to have those available. And kind of, I guess they can be held for whatever time to be used in the development, so.
So a related question to that, what, if the development doesn't use them, do they just kind of go back?
Yep. Yeah, if they are, they would have, I'm not, honestly not sure of the actual, can you reserve these names for 1 year or 2 years, or, but once they have been approved by Planning Commission, technically they've all been vetted. Until they get recorded and used, they could be used again until they're duplicated. So, you know, there's another development wanted to get Breezy Point and Palm Cove approved, and they used it before it was, this project recorded it. I would assume that that would be acceptable.
Another question I had was with there was obviously the 4 that have like Point, Cove, Avenue, Way, and the other ones that didn't have the street type associated with them. So this is just they can take any of those and replace any of these Point, Cove, Avenue, Way names as needed?
Yes.
Okay.
So that would be the name, like Breezy Point or Palm Cove. The other one would be moved down to B-Balm. They can choose, you're approving the name, and then the applicant can choose whether it's street, road, circle, lane, whatever fits best with their development.
That's what that meant.
Yeah, Planning Commission, the Development Review Committee, we don't have any purview over that. We're just reviewing the name
part.
itself. Yeah.
So that's what you meant by street type required.
Yes.
Okay.
Will, as we talked today on the phone, there is a Mulberry Road within the general area, and Ibis Circle, which is very close to Mulberry Ave and Iberis. I'm wondering why those didn't get knocked down, because clearly with section 3.153B and C, it says you shouldn't have the first names the same
Right.
or anything that sounds similar.
Right.
And both Mulberry and Iberis sounds very similar to those two.
Right. In that case, as we had talked earlier, we just send these out for review from all the various agencies.
But we could put that as a condition, is not
It
to
could be
use
that
those.
they slipped through and they didn't recognize that. So if you would like, when you make a motion, you can make a motion to approve as submitted with the exception of, and you can decline any names on the list. You don't have to approve. It's not all or nothing as far as this list goes. So you're approving each name individually on the list. And you can, if you choose to make a motion to exclude Mulberry and Iberis because you're afraid that they are too similar to other names, then that's perfectly acceptable.
As I talked to you on the phone today, in our development, there's 3 streets that start with the word anchor, and it has caused an incredible amount of confusion with mail and packages. So I'm kind of sensitive to it, which is why I'd probably be inclined for us to decline those 2 names.
I'd rather err on the side of caution anyways. We've had a similar conversation. I'm looking at this one too, and it just occurred to me, Palm Cove, and we have Palmetto Cove in Hampton Lake, and so that could be a potentially confusing one. I appreciate you bringing that up, Rich.
So I'm going to move to the next slide. So your actions, what you're allowed to do here tonight, you can approve the application as it is submitted, approve it with conditions, or deny it as submitted. Again, there are A through J of criteria that are listed in your packet to be considered. Our recommendation was to approve all of the application as submitted. But again, you do not have to approve you can approve with conditions, and you can approve line item by line item if you so choose.
Can't say because they sound stupid that it can't.
That's close to one of the criteria because frivolous.
Frivolous.
Yeah, does not use
Frivolous.
frivolous or complicated words or unconventional spellings. The biggest one we run into are names which sound alike or might be confused with one another, or sometimes they might be considered offensive.
Anyone want to make a motion?
Yeah, I move that consistent with the UDO, section 3153B and 3153C, that the street names of Mulberry Avenue and Iberis Streets be deleted from the list of approved names
Accept the rest.
and accept the rest. Yes, thank you.
Can I get a second to the motion?
Second.
Ron seconded. And then can we have a discussion? Did you?
It just, the only thing I occurred to me, Palm Cove, Palmetto Cove, it's the same meaning, but I'm not buying into it. I don't know if anybody else
I agree with you.
do you?
Yeah.
Then I guess I would move to amend the original motion to add Palm Cove to the, as a third restricted use.
Then do I need a motion for the amendment of,
Second his motion.
we need to second
A
Charlie's
second
motion?
Charlie's motion.
Seconded it. So now we need a motion to approve.
Well, no, we vote on the amendment, then we vote on the original as amended.
Can we just do that?
No,
Haven't voted yet.
We seconded it, yeah.
May I get a, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now I need to make a motion, a new motion for.
no, you conclude the original motion.
The original one is now amended, so now we can vote on the original
Now we're
as
going to
amended.
vote on the original one, which includes the amendment. May I have a motion?
You have
Or
any-
we have a motion. May I have, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This is complicated. Darby, you need to add this to the list. I was talking to her earlier about some processes that I get confused on, so thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Funny.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the second thing. Sorry, that was complicated. Parcel 7A, Buckwalter Commercial Preliminary Development Plan. A request by Parcel 7A LLC for approval of a preliminary development plan. Project consists of the development of 13,150 square feet of flex space commercial retail building and associated utilities, parking, and vehicular pedestrian circulation. The property is zoned Buckwalter Plan Unit Development and consists of 1.5 acres identified by tax map numbers in your packet. And Kathleen, you need to recuse?
I do.
Okay. Bill?
Okay. As you just stated, this is a request by Parcel 7A LLC for a preliminary development plan. We've got approximately 1,300 square feet flex space commercial retail building with all associated utilities and parking. Many of you will remember we presented this, I believe it was at the June meeting. So here's the location. See if my pointer will work. You can see in the red square here. Yep. Off of Buckwalter Towns Boulevard. I've got a little enlargement here. And then I may have provided a copy of the Buckwalter Commons Phase 1 Master Plan, just showing that commercial and mixed use is a permitted allowed use for the parcel. So again, this is 1,300 roughly square feet of flex space. The application is subject to the standards in the Buckwalter PUD concept plan, development agreement, and phase 1 master plan. You will remember a preliminary plan for the same parcel that proposed only filling, grading, and leveling of the parcel was presented at the June 23rd meeting. That application was denied as it was lacking some of the required application materials. The applicant presented a new application. It was submitted July 20th, reviewed August 25th by the Development Review Committee, and the applicant has subsequently provided resubmittal materials to satisfy those comments provided by the DRC. Again, there's the master plan. Here's a site plan that is proposed for the site. Again, you can just see here's the building. Got it broken into, what, 7, I think, or so possible tenant spaces. Parking that satisfies the requirements of the PUD for the square footage and use. Have a concept landscape plan that was also provided showing the intent to landscape the property so as to be in compliance with the PUD and the master plan. And I believe, if I did not include it, I believe you did have did you have lighting that was not included, or you had your narrative, the narrative stated that they would provide lighting so as to be compliant with the PUD requirements. Just an aerial photo showing the parcel has already been primarily cleared. It currently consists of the 3 parcels that you see here, those 3 parcels. And if you remember, you've got 6 criteria that you'll be reviewing for a preliminary development plan. I can go through each one individually. But again, the property is not subject to the UDO. It's subject to the Buckwalter PUD concept plan and development agreement. Our only finding as far as a condition of approval, and it's not even a condition of approval, it's just a notation that as the property currently exists as 3 separate lots, the proposed building is placed across 2 lots with a property line going through the building. So an exempt plat to relocate the property lines, basically a recombination prior to the issuance of any development permit would be required because we can't have property lines going through the building. That's a simple process approved at a staff level. So TIA was provided with the Buckwalter PUD, and again with the master plan. All utilities are in place or will be provided as at the time of development. It's proposed to be completed in a single phase, and staff has reviewed the application and determined that it is complete. So again, tonight you can approve this application as it is submitted. You can approve it with conditions, or you can deny the application submitted by the applicant. Staff is recommending that the application be approved as submitted. I can answer questions at the property owner as well as the landscape architect that did some site planning as well. Here for questions.
You guys would like to say? All right, I'll open it up.
Go back to the site plan here.
Question, Will, is there a requirement of notification to the adjacent homes that surround this property? Has that been done, or is that not a requirement here?
No, that was done on the original application. So yeah, they were, and in this case, I think all you had to do was, Mr. Zen owns some of the adjacent property. I think Lidl owns an adjacent property, and then there's the POA that had to be notified, and that would have been it.
And the POA has been notified?
Buckwalter Towns, yes.
Okay.
The individual town homeowners been notified?
No, the requirement of the UDO is just that we notify the
Development.
the POA or the HOA, and then it's up to them to notify the residents. And for, when we notify for development, we notify only adjacent property owners. We don't notify a radius like we did for, a zoning application or something that requires everyone within a certain radius. This is strictly adjacent property owners.
I just have a small question. The landscape plan doesn't match the engineered site plan. Is that an issue or, and the big thing is screening the parking lot from the entry road. On the engineer's plan, there's room to do that. On the landscape plan, there's no room to do that. But on the engineer's plan, they have sidewalk right up against the building. And I think if I remember the PUD, you have to have landscape around the building, which is what the landscape shows. So just trying to hit those requirements.
Well, what we bring is, we just ask for a conceptual landscape plan because it's not required
Right.
until final development plan. Just showing that, yes, they could meet the intent and the requirements of the PUD. So if it doesn't match exactly, staff will address the engineer's site plan and the landscape plan both at the time of final development plan.
I don't know, wish we had our attorney here so he could tell me if I was overstepping. Tom, I've known you for a long time. We're friends. I like you. I have to qualify that. Y'all came before us 3 months ago with a request to knock down all the trees as per what were the guidelines way back when, with no plans to put anything on here, and now 2 months later, you have plans to put something on here? Move forward to where you're...
You want to come step up so we can hear you on record?
I'm trying to get an understanding of it. I don't...
And
what
Tom,
has to
can you
hap-
just state your name so we have it on record?
Tom's in, Buckwater Commercial, and also the POA and so forth. What happens on these sites like this, there has to be a grading that takes place, okay? You have to put in a certain amount of fill, and many of you know how this works. What occurs, you take the trees down, and then you bring new trees in. And then the new trees is what shows up on a landscape plan. So for Washington Square, for example, they kind of did, everything in terms of all the trees. We usually save, some trees if they can't be saved, but we do that in the field. And we'll, I think, when we meet, we'll meet out in the field and we'll take a look at trees and we'll do all that type of thing. But in this site, it needs to be raised, okay, and in conjunction with that, then what occurs is that the landscape plan that you see aren't the trees that are actually out there. Those trees are actually trees that we bring in and we plant and so forth. Now, we have actually relocated trees, I guess.
No, I get all that. What I'm wondering is, there wasn't a plan for a building on this site, and now all of a sudden, 2 months later, there is, which will accomplish being able to do what you were trying to do 2 months ago. I'm trying to understand that.
Yeah, basically, a step in the process is, to do the grading and so forth. And the trees that you see here are trees in conjunction with the landscape plan of the finished product. Taking the trees down is a step necessary to get to the point where you can replant the trees to have them grow.
I think we understand that. I think the question is how did it change from you wanted just a grading plan to now having a complete development plan? Because it seemed like a few months ago you didn't want to have the development plan.
Well,
I think that's right. Is that kind of-
the concept of the shovel-ready, from an economic development standpoint, matter of fact, there's a study being done right now by John O'Toole and everyone else in terms of, how this all should be working together and so forth. And I encourage you all to, take a look at the study that's being prepared. We've been interviewed and talked to Carletta Angada, who, Charlie, you probably know from Beaufort Chamber, who's actually heading up that whole study and that whole everything that's going on related to that. So, as with any development, you have to start through a series of process to get to the final product. And, you know, the problem I think it's a problem, but, you know, everybody, I'm not going to address it, as being a problem is that there is no grading permit per se in the town of Bluffton. It's very rare to not have a situation where you have a grading permit not in a town. First time when I ran across it in 50 years, frankly, with being in 12 states and everything else. So rather than argue as to whether or not, you know, you're supposed to have a grading permit or not have a grading permit, obviously there was a long history of having grading only permits scattered throughout all of Bluffton. We basically decided, you know, let's just go and do exactly what is required per the procedure, you know, and what we're doing now is to basically go per the book every element of the way, and rather than just going in for a grading permit, we're going in for this development permit that not only includes the 6 conditions that the Planning Commission placed on our application, but over and above the 6 conditions, you know, through the DRC process and so forth, there's other things that take place. So you see the landscape plan, even though a landscape plan is not required for this preliminary development permit, but we went the extra step to do not only that which is required, but also, you know, things that are over and above what's required.
And we appreciate that. We just wanted to understand,
Sure.
I guess, the timing and what the difference was between then and now, but it's just because we didn't have that application of a grading permit.
Exactly.
And so, but going forward, you still have to do a final development plan before you get any permitting to do anything.
We're doing
Correct.
it exactly the way, per the requirements of the town of Bluffton.
So this is holding you to a higher standard on this property?
Yeah, even
But it's
just
the same
work.
standard as
So
everything
even after this preliminary approval, the applicant would still have to go through MS4 approval and still have to go through final development plan approval before we would provide any permit to do any land disturbance.
That'd be just like everybody else.
Yes.
Exactly.
The only other thing I have, and it may be a small thing, but I know this is preliminary, but where the dumpster is located backs up to where the townhomes are. If the dumpster could be moved to the side of the property as opposed to the back, you would probably have neighbors that appreciate that. Not saying do it, just suggesting.
Motion?
Move it, we approve the application as submitted.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Thanks, James.
And it looks like we have some discussion. Will, what are we discussing?
I have no discussion on the agenda.
Okay, well then, can I get a
I
motion?
think discussion is just listed, but there's no
Oh,
items for
okay.
discussion.
Making sure.
Talk about something for a minute and a half
No,
so I
we're
can be
good.
right.
No,
on
you're
what
not
I
gonna be right.
predicted.
I move that we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Matt at seconds. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.